It's just the whole world's in a bit of a chaos as they're trying to figure out what matters, right? And where do they belong? And how do we get them as leaders? How do we get our people more engaged and feeling part of the story? You've built a model around that, as I understand it. And since I missed your talk, I'd actually like to hear a little bit about that.
For a long time, I had a small design brand company with a business partner, and we helped leaders and CEOs and businesses and all scale and all kinds of industries get clarity on who they were, their identity, and how they wanted to march forward. So we got pretty good at that. And then I was asked to join a hospital and become the chief brand officer. And I also was given the entire enterprise patient experience. We were doing several things for that. Is actually the hospital in Fredericksburg, Texas, Hill Country Memorial Hospital. And Mike Williams was the CEO, and he'd been a client. He's been a friend, longtime friend, and was a client of ours. And he took over the role and asked me to join. And that's how I ended up in the hospital space. We were activating so many different change elements. 82% of our workforce were clinically trained. The community loved the hospital. The board said we're going to remain an independently owned community hospital at all times. Chris Avery, James Avery's son from James Avery Jewelry, was the outgoing board president at the time I joined. So there was a lot of intentional activity around this hospital and very determined group to move forward. So I designed and put in place a platform, a brand platform called Remarkable Healthcare. And I separated the word health and care specifically so we could move forward and focus on health as much as care. And so Greg and I presented it to the board the year before we joined. The board adopted it. We moved forward. I got on board. And we brought in Ann Rhodes, the chief people officer for our values. We brought in Brian Williams, who's a global trainer for Ritz-Carlton, who's now a speaker. We brought in Toyota Lean process improvement. I mean, we had that little hospital going a lot of different directions. But I kept hearing the ubiquitous term buy-in. Oh, they're bought in, they're bought in, they're bought in. But I could tell there was great resistance. And because when we came on board, that first year for me personally was actually a little discouraging because it seemed like there were 15 different definitions internally with the team of what remarkable meant. So it's like, oh, we're already remarkable, or we can't be remarkable, or that's stupid. We'll never be remarkable. And it's just all this tension. So you had the workforce of the team being introduced something very clear and different, that the expectations now were somewhat defined, and then we were getting them more defined about what that meant. But you had all of the processing that each person has to go through and change. It's a little question mark, it's a big question mark, or you're running down the hallway with your hair on fire because you're freaking out. So I started with this thing called the passive what if that moved one. I would do these forums with Mike, and we talked about change. And one side of the path of what if is, oh no, what if that happens to me? It becomes fear. You hunker down. It's all about me. It's hard to be productive. You're resistant. There's friction. On the other side is like, oh, what if we could? And so we talked about how we could move fear to hope. So you could go down the path of fear. You could go down the path of hope. And the hope was centered around teamwork. And what if we could? What if we could do this? What if we could do that? What if we could make these changes? In all of that, though, I started seeing data, however your audience wants to talk about it, from Gallup saying that 62 or 65% of the workforce in aggregate across industry was not engaged. But everybody keeps saying, oh, they're bought in, they're bought in, they're bought in. But then I started thinking about, well, there's people out there that are pulling in the parking lot, coming in here. I'm watching them. They're not bought in. they're not bought in. So I put bought in and drew a box around it, a square around on a whiteboard in the office, and really went to work on what does buy-in mean. And as I did that, it showed me a progressive map of 4 activities, behaviors, if you will, in every organization, in my observation. And they are bought in, and then there's people that need to go out. So there's Jack Welch used to fire 10% of his workforce regularly. I wouldn't necessarily advocate that, but that's what happened. So there was always an out. Then there was the ideal state. What's the ideal state? And that's all in, right? We talk about it. There's all in podcasts. There's all in here. There's all in everywhere. But it was just, what is this activity? And every one of those categories has a story. Your bought in folks say, just tell me what to do. I'll get it done. I'm here. I'm committed. I'll get it done. Your all in folks say, give me more, give me more, give me more, give me more, give me more. Your out folks say, I ain't doing that. But there was this territory of behavior that didn't make sense to me. And I thought, okay, what is that? And as I observed and we made changes and we talked, it dawned on me one day, oh, those folks are just in. And each one of those is hyphenated. And I've given the talk on the end frame. It's called the end frame. And I designed it and been using it in different industries. And it's been more strategic for leaders at this point. We're looking at building it out more. And what I've noticed is when I put just in on the board, I've heard gasps in the audience. And I think because it gives people a language that I've tagged it specifically with conversational language that everybody observes by their own behavior and by their behavior of their teammate and work. I have, as I told the audience at C12, I have been in every category. I've been out, I've been just in, I've been bought in, I've been all in. But I tell leaders, you're looking for behavioral patterns. And then there's, as each story is being told by the behavior, remember, bought in is just tell me what to do, I'll get it done. I'm the workhorse, that's me. All in, give me more, give me more. Your outs are saying I ain't doing it, but your just-ins are saying, well, maybe, kind of, probably not, I don't know, whatever, yeah, but don't do it. And you know who I'm talking about. And when that happens, there are ways for leaders to address each category. And if you understand what the behavior is and the categories you're after, then you're really, really wanting to do is combine your bought-in behavior with your just-in behavior. So your bought-in with your just-in gives you the platform for all-in teamwork and all-in culture, because you dovetail those two together. You dovetail the I'm going to get it done with the let's do more. And boy, I tell you, if you feed that and continue to give clarity and insight and resources to that, what will happen is you'll begin to see the territory of your all-in teamwork and your culture expand. On the front end, it'll begin to find new areas for success. And on the back end, it'll put the pressure on your just-ins. Because what happens if leaders do not address the just-in, and if you look at the data, what you were saying, the Gallup's data says, now it's 80-something% of people are not engaged in worldwide level. The U.S. is a little less than that. But if you look at that on a weighted scale, your just-in category is nearly three quarters of your whole entire environment. And so what I tell leaders is you have to go after that behavior immediately. And there's three things that happen in that in my observation, there's probably more. There's psychologists and psychiatrists that could go deep down dive in all this, but I'm seeing it as it is. When you have a just-in behavior that you need to address, you have to go at it quickly as a leader. And there's three things that we've seen. One is it's an attitude problem. If it's an attitude problem and they're just at their core resistant and don't need to be there, you can move them to the out category.